Good evening, welcome along. The transfer window is open. That means the transfer show is back. Great to have you with us for the first time this month. And with their ears to the ground for us this evening, our reporters Mark McAdam and Dharmesh Sheth. Now, on the way, the market is growing for Marcus Rashford, with interest from growing for Italy in Manchester United's out of favour. We'll have the latest on Liverpool's contract trio. That includes Trent Alexander-Arnold, of course. And Tottenham have already been busy. Ange Postecoglou has signed a keeper, and there are links with a French striker. Right, let's start with Manchester United, and let's start with Marcus Rashford. Dharmesh, any chance he could be off this month?
Never say never is the wording that I've been given this afternoon. Look, a number of clubs, including AC Milan, have kind of internally discussed at their own club whether they want to make an approach to Manchester United with regard to a move for Marcus Rashford. Remember, he did that interview with Henry Winton not too long ago saying that he needed a new challenge, the next steps in his footballing career. With Milan, they would only be able to do a loan, is what we're being told. And alongside that loan, they would require Manchester United to basically stump up a high portion of Marcus Rashford's rather high wages that he has at the moment. United, for their part, they've yet to receive any kind of official offer for Marcus Rashford. And every time Ruben Amorim is asked the question about Rashford, it seems to be in every single press conference, it seems to be in every single post-match interview as well. He has said it is up to Marcus Rashford. As long as he trains properly, he will be back in the squad. He missed those 4 games, remember. Then he was back in the squad for the Newcastle game, but he was an unused substitute. And then the Liverpool game, he was ill and he didn't make the squad at all at Anfield. But with regard to Rashford, it seems like all options are open with regard to his future, be it whether he stays or goes. The ideal scenario, you would think, as far as Manchester United are concerned, is that he gets his head right, he plays well, and he performs at a high level for Manchester United that he used to once perform at. And then, come the end of the season, you'll either have a player at Manchester United that can go on and become what they want him to become at Manchester United, or he will have raised his value in the transfer window so that if they come to selling him in the summer, they can get a good price for him.
Okay.
The alternative is, could he go out on loan? And I guess the optics and the PR isn't that great if he goes out on loan and Manchester United are almost having to pay Marcus Rashford's part of his wages to be out on loan. But if you look at this in another way, if he was to do that and they've decided he doesn't have a future at United, he could go on a straight loan to another club and he performs really, really well at that club. He will come back to Manchester United in the summer with an enhanced market value.
Big if in there, don't I?
It is,
He's got to perform. We were there, weren't we? You and I had this conversation.
Of course.
About Calvin Phillips.
But
if he performs well, he'll go for loads of money.
But we also had this conversation with Jadon Sancho. And it's almost an identical situation that Manchester United find themselves in. And this time last season, Manchester United had effectively said Jadon Sancho doesn't have a future. They let him go out on a straight loan deal to Borussia Dortmund. He performed really, really well for them, helped them get to the Champions League final, no less. Comes back in the summer, and we thought, has he got a future at United with Erik ten Hag? Because they seemed to have kissed and made up by then. But then they decided, actually, Chelsea have come in with a deal that comes with an obligation to buy for over £20 million, which is probably a lot more than they would have got had he not gone on that loan spell to Borussia Dortmund. So maybe United are looking at that as an example and thinking maybe they can do the same thing with Rashford.
Or Mark, can't they just sell him?
If only it was that simple. Yeah, the problem with Marcus Rashford, not only is he probably one of the highest earning players at Manchester United, in the summer of 2023 he signed a brand new bumper contract as well. He has 3.5 years to run on that current Old Trafford deal. So it's not an easy deal to make happen. And then there are not many clubs, particularly in the upper echelons of European football or in the Premier League that could afford the type of wages that Marcus Rashford is currently on. As Dharmesh alluded to there, if he were to go to a club like AC Milan, they'd be hoping that United would pay a big proportion of his wages. So therefore, it's not a simple cut and dry, right, let's get rid of him, let's go, because he'll be saying, well, I've got 3.5 years on this current money. I'm not going anywhere because I want to earn the money that you've given me. Therefore, it makes any potential permanent deal a really tricky one to do.
All right, I want to talk to you about a couple of other United players. Joshua Zirkzee, not feeling the love the other day. The fans were nicer to him yesterday. Could he be off this month, Mark?
Yeah, a player that signed for Manchester United this summer from Bologna, only 23 years old. 4 goals in 28 appearances. He started brilliantly with that goal on debut, but it hasn't really kicked on from there. And like you say, a lot of frustration from the fans. They've made that very clear about how they feel as well, which is probably unacceptable for a player that is absolutely trying his best. When it comes to the transfer window, we know that Juventus are interested in him, and there are a number of other clubs that are also keen on taking him on loan. The likes of Napoli, Inter Milan, and other Premier League sides have discussed a potential deal. But as far as Joshua Zirkzee is concerned, he wants to stay at Old Trafford. No question about him leaving in this window. He wants to fight, he wants to improve, and he wants to prove to Ruben Amorim that he can play in his starting 11. So as far as he's concerned, focused on Manchester United, and the noise about potential departures is not something that's interested in terms of what he wants to do. There are clubs that will take him, but on loan. So, again, another issue. Manchester United not interested in any loan. It would have to be a permanent deal, and it would have to be a significant more than what they pay for him in the summer just gone.
2 things I'd say. Ruben Amorim has actually said he wants to keep him. And also, we shouldn't be surprised that Juventus are interested because their manager is Thiago Motta, who Zirkzee played under at Bologna and impressed at Bologna. That got him that move to Manchester United in the first place. You can see why Juventus would be interested in trying to sign him.
He was a Ten Hag signing, as was Anthony.
Yeah.
Don't fit with Amorim, it doesn't look like. Could Anthony be on his way this month?
I mean, you say he was a Ten Hag signing. He wasn't fitting in with Ten Hag so far this season as well. He hasn't actually started a game in the Premier League for Manchester United since the 4-0 thrashing to Crystal Palace at the end of last season, when I was told that there are a number of clubs, including clubs from Spain and in Greece, that have approached Manchester United. So they've made direct contact, club to club, about a potential loan move for Anthony. You mentioned the move that he made. It was back in the summer of 2022. It came very, very late in the window. United probably could have got him for probably half the price earlier on in the window had they gone in then. But if you remember then, United were really stuck in trying to get Frankie de Jong to the football club, and all the focus was on that. And then by the end of the window, it was almost panic stations, and Casemiro came in late, and so did Anthony. And Anthony came in for £82 million. And as I said, he hasn't started a Premier League game since the end of last season, which means he hasn't started a Premier League game under Ruben Amorim, which would probably mean if the right offer was to come along, I think Manchester United would consider it.
Right. Everybody's talking about what's going on at Liverpool, of course, and those three players whose contracts are up at the end of the season. Mark, Mo Salah posted on social media today. I think we can have a look at it. I'd like to have a look at it if we can. Now, he's put himself, Trent and Virgil van Dijk in that shot. What's he doing? No caption. What's that about?
Read between the lines. Obviously, we can only assume what Mo Salah is saying. The 3 best players at Liverpool, the 3 players out of contract in the summer. What's going on? What's happening? And I find it quite fascinating to look at how much he's been very vocal, either in the mix zone, in interviews, in post-match interviews, about his future and about what's going on, compared to Trent Alexander-Arnold and Virgil van Dijk, who are all approaching the situation in a very different way. And perhaps the fans feeling different emotions towards each of those 3 players. Now, the first thing you have to say is that Liverpool are in a real situation here, because Sporting Director Richard Hughes and FSG CEO Michael Edwards, who have come into the club this summer, have inherited this problem. This is a situation that they are trying to deal with. It's not something of their making. You speak to any sporting director in the Premier League, they'll say, as soon as a key player gets down to 2 years, you either sell him or you give him a new contract. Under no circumstances do you allow him to get into the final 12 months of his deal, particularly when you're looking at superstars, as these 3 are.
In the final 6 months of their deal.
Yeah, if you spoke to me 6 months ago, I would have said the chances of all 3 of them staying slim, I'd say there's probably 1.5. You'd lose one, you keep one, and there's one on the fence. And I think everyone can work out the three situations with each of them at the moment. And I think this is a really difficult situation because not only are Liverpool having a season of their life, top of the Champions League, top of the Premier League, and looking outstanding, but the noise is around these three players and the contract situations. But I think you have to look at the way each of them are handling the situation very differently, and I think that's playing into how the fans feel about each of those players.
What is interesting as well, I mean, Mark spoke about it there, how they're handling it. You've seen Virgil van Dijk being very calm about the situation. He's always asked the question whenever he's in an interview, and he says, no update, I'm calm about the situation. Mark mentioned Mohamed Salah has been very vocal of late. I'm in my final year. This is my final year at Liverpool. Whereas Trent Alexander-Arnold is not saying much at all, and admittedly he hasn't been interviewed that much. But there's a big difference for me when you look at Salah and you look at Trent Alexander's situation, because Mohamed Salah, I haven't actually heard of, and there will be clubs who desperately would want to sign him, but they haven't been made public at all. We haven't heard of any clubs approaching Liverpool to say, we want to sign Mohamed Salah. Whereas, with Trent Alexander-Arnold, we know that Real Madrid have made an approach to Liverpool. Now, we shouldn't be naive here. Real Madrid aren't going to approach Liverpool unless there's some kind of encouragement that Trent Alexander-Arnold is perhaps leaning towards a move to Real Madrid. Now, Real Madrid can talk to his representatives because Alexander-Arnold can talk to clubs outside England this month. So they can talk to him about a pre-contract agreement. But they actually approached Liverpool about trying to sign him in this transfer window. That approach has been rebuffed. But the mere fact that that happened, you would kind of lean towards, I know Mark was saying, you know, who's staying, who's going. I'm kind of leaning towards, from all the noises that everyone's making, that Van Dijk will stay and sign a new contract. Salah will probably stay and sign a new contract, despite everything that he's saying, simply because it's almost his message and he's doing it publicly to Liverpool. I'm here, look how I'm performing, what are you going to do for me? We don't know where the disagreement is. He says they're very far away. Is it over money? Is it over the contract length? That's not been made public. Whereas Trent Alexander-Arnold, the growing feeling and the mood music is that come the summer, he will be not sold, he will move for free to Real Madrid.
Interesting times at Liverpool. Now, I went down to the Monday Night Football studio and spoke to Jamie Carragher about that very thing. Really interesting. That's coming up at 5:30. But coming up next, we're going to go live to Molineux. Encouraging news for Wolves. And there's already one in at Tottenham. Could there be one out? We are back in a couple of minutes on The Transfer Show. See ya.
Contract extension at Nottingham Forest. They only just signed him in August 2023, I think, for around £15 million from the Brazilian club Corinthians. Become a really key player for Nottingham Forest, and look how fantastically well that they've done so far this season. I think they want to not only tie him down, but the likes of Ola Aina and Chris Wood as well, who have got contracts running out in this summer. No such problems with regard to Murillo. He's got a slightly longer term contract because he only just signed it 18 months ago. But I think with regard to how he's performed so far, and I think there'll be a lot of interest in him as well. Nottingham Forest want to get him quickly and reward him for his performances, and that's why he is in talks now over a contract extension with probably improved terms at Forest.
Nottingham Forest flying high. Spurs not quite so much, but they have made a signing. Mark.
Yeah, goalkeeper Antonin Kinski from Slavia Prague. 21 years old, signed a contract in North London that will keep him there until 2031, so it's a long-term deal. There was question marks as to whether or not the work permit would be completed in time to play this week. We've had confirmation today on Sky Sports News that that work permit has been rubber-stamped and granted, so potentially could be involved to play this week in the League Cup. So good news for Tottenham there.
And possibly, potentially more good news. They've been linked with a player at the other end of the pitch. Tell us more.
Yeah, this is a story to keep an eye on at the moment. This is something that actually Fabrizio Romano has been reporting, that Tottenham have approached PSG with regards to a player that's been linked to the Premier League a number of times over the last few seasons. Randall Kolo Muani, the 26-year-old centre-forward. He has a contract until the summer of 2028. However, game time has been limited recently. He's only scored 2 goals in 14 appearances in all competitions this season. And even in the last 3 or 4 weeks, he's actually been left out of the squad at PSG as well. So he's not getting game time. He's still at a great age. He's a player that has a lot of quality, obviously an international as well. Be interesting to see if those reports become more concrete, but dialogue, according to Fabrizio Romano, between PSG and Spurs over this man.
Like that. All right, now Wolves are in action tonight. They play Nottingham Forest, who we've just been talking about. That's the Monday Night Football. Anton Tolui is there for us and joins us now. Anton, Cunha suspended, but I'm hearing there might be good news about him. What can you tell us?
Well, it's interesting, this one, Mike. It depends who you listen to, because, yes, the future of Matheus Cunha is something that all Wolves fans would love to see. He's actually got 2.5 years left on his contract at Wolves, but they're keen to lock him up long term, and it's hardly a surprise, is it, considering he's been the bright spark of what's been quite a dark season, certainly before Victor Pereira turned up. Anyway, so the two parties have been in discussions for quite a while. Now, we speak to some people close to the deal, they say, yeah, actually, this talk's progressing nicely. You know, maybe even a deal will be agreed relatively soon. However, we do understand that the player wants a little bit more time to consider his options, because potentially there are other options out there. There is interest from Premier League and other Champions League clubs in him as well. So this one, I think, will take a little bit longer than probably most people here at Wolves want, but they were willing to obviously give him as much time as he wants to make sure that he does stay here long term. They're desperate for him to stay, and it's hardly a surprise why. He's been the source, either scoring or assisting nearly half their goals in the Premier League this season. He's been that integral to the side, and as they look to shape into a new future under Victor Pereira, they will see him as the talisman going forward. So yeah, it's definitely one to watch out in this window.
Yeah, they're going quite well under Pereira, aren't they? Even though they're right down near the bottom. Thank you very much, Anton, from Molineux. Now, Arsenal's injury list growing. Ethan Nwaneri, the latest to be ruled out for a few weeks. So, will Mikel Arteta strengthen in the window? Well, we asked him.
Do you feel, I was going to say compared to last season, with the injuries you've had and maybe the illness recently as well, it feels like you're in a bit more bad luck compared to last season. With that in mind, and Nwaneri is the latest injury, is there any chance you would maybe look to add to the squad before the end of this month?
That hasn't changed. Again, the focus is on our players. Whatever is in the market, we are very alert. But the priority is working with the players that we have at the moment, and tomorrow night, which is a big night for us.
But it's not a no.
Sorry?
It's not a no to bring it in.
It's not a yes, it's not a no.
Bit coy there, Arteta. What have you heard, Dharmesh?
Look, what we should say here is Arsenal, rather like most of the Premier League clubs, when they finish a season, they don't actually finish the season and go, oh, we're going to go big in January. That's not the mentality of these clubs. They try to do the majority of their business in the summer. And usually what happens in January, they would go into the market, but it's a reactive window, depending on the state of their squad. Now, you could argue that Arsenal do need to react because they've got an injury to Bukayo Saka, the guy who's replaced him in Nwaneri. Mikel Arteta's just confirmed he's going to be out for a few weeks. But then
Sterling's out as well.
He'll be on his way back as well. But that's the one thing. When it's injuries, unless they're like really, really long-term ones, Arsenal have to factor that in because Bukayo Saka is going to come back well before the end of the season. So if you're bringing in someone, a forward player, to cover the fact that Saka is out, they'll come in with the mentality knowing that as soon as Saka's fit, they're not going to be in the squad anymore. Having said that, Arsenal have been quite successful in a previous January transfer window when they signed Leandro Trossard from Brighton. And, you know, he's done really, really well for them. Could they get a signing like that again? I'm not saying they're not going to go into the market, and Mikel Arteta has left it open as well. But what I would say, it's one of those situations where if there is a long-term target that is available, Arsenal will want to act. But if there is a really good short-term target available, Arsenal want to be in a position to act as well. But it's never the case that they go into a season thinking, let's go massive in January. It's never that case.
No, of course. Mark, Bournemouth, that's your beat. What's going on there?
Yeah, obviously Bournemouth, again, very similar to what Dharmesh had just said. They're not looking to be hugely active in this window. However, there is one position that they have targeted. Over the course of the weekend, we reported that they were in advanced talks with Lanús in Argentina over the 19-year-old under-20 Argentina captain, the left-back, Julio Cesar. We know that those talks are at an advanced stage, hoping to have some developments over the course of the next few hours, because we know that those talks have been really positive over the last 48 hours. And then, in theory, the player could come over to the UK to start the medical. But yeah, Bournemouth looking to be active, but again, just to top up the squad, as opposed to bringing in someone who could go in straight to that first team and have an impact in the Premier League.
It's interesting that we're talking transfers, because Eddie Howe believes business logic is taking over football. The Newcastle boss said that they've been forced to sell players in the past through purely business considerations.
I think the business logic is taking over from the football logic. I think that will be the way for not just for us, but for lots and lots of clubs, because there may be football decisions you'd like to make, and nothing I'd think will be bigger than the previous summer, where we had to lose 2 highly promising young players. We were forced to. We had no choice. So that was very much the business taking over the football, and I think we're still in that position to a degree.
Now, Dharmesh, a couple of Premier League clubs in for Douglas Luiz. It wasn't long ago that Douglas Luiz was here. Can you see there being a market for him to come back to the Premier League?
It certainly appears that way, because when I was explaining that a situation with Trent Alexander-Arnold, Real Madrid aren't going to go and make an approach for a player unless they're getting some sort of encouragement. So if there are 2 Premier League clubs who are interested in someone like Douglas Luiz, then there must be some sort of market from the Juventus side where they say, right, we'll be willing to maybe do a loan, or a loan with an option, or a loan with an obligation. He's only been there since the summer after he signed from Aston Villa. And we saw Barranquilla and Illing Jr. from Juventus go to Villa. So definitely one to keep an eye on.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that at 7 o'clock. The boys back at 7. I'm back after the break, and I spoke to Jamie Carragher. Wait till you hear what he said about what's going on at Liverpool. See you in a moment.